The night it happened, the snow fell like it was trying to erase the world, thick and quiet and relentless. The kind of Christmas Eve that makes everything feel suspended between endings and beginnings. Street lights blurred into halos, and the cold crept through coats and bones alike. In that stillness, a woman who had not stood in years found herself bracing her hands against a freezing metal rail, her heart hammering as if it remembered something her body had forgotten. She did not know yet that three small voices, breathless with fear and hope, were about to change the shape of her life, or that this night would ask her to risk everything she believed she had lost. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when strangers become family, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, so stories like this can keep finding their way to hearts that need them. Her name was Eleanor, and she had learned to move through the world at a lower height, eye level with door handles and knees, with patience carved into her shoulders, and resolve stitched into her smile. Years earlier, a winter accident had stolen the easy trust she once had in her own legs, replacing it with a chair that squeaked softly when she rolled, and a map of ramps and elevators etched into her mind. Christmas Eve usually found her alone, not out of bitterness, but because solitude had become simpler, safer. That night, however, she had volunteered to drop off donated coats at the community center, a task she told herself was about giving, though it also gave her a reason to be out among lights and snow, feeling part of something larger than her apartment's quiet walls. The community center sat at the end of a narrow street, its entrance framed by a ramp that had always been reliable, always there like a promise. But the promise had cracked. Ice had crept beneath the metal, swelling and bending it, and a careless truck had clipped the railing earlier that evening, leaving the ramp buckled and unusable. Eleanor discovered this only after parking, after the cold had stiffened her fingers and the night had wrapped tighter around her. She stared at the ramp, calculating angles and distances, knowing her chair would not make it, knowing the front door was too heavy and the side entrance locked. She felt the old frustration rise, the familiar weight of being stopped by something so ordinary, so preventable. She was considering turning back when she saw them at the far end of the street, three small figures moving as one, identical coats pulled up to identical chins, hats bobbing in unison. Triplets, she would later learn, whose lives had been synchronized since birth, whose laughter and fear traveled in threes. They ran toward her with the urgency of children who had been told to find help, and had decided she was it. Their faces were red from the cold, eyes wide with something that was not quite panic but close. They spoke all at once, words tumbling and overlapping, explaining that their father was stuck in their apartment building, that the elevator had failed, that the temporary wooden ramp installed for his injury had collapsed under ice. They had tried neighbors, tried knocking on doors, tried calling numbers they barely understood, and now they were here because Christmas Eve had made the streets quieter, and because Eleanor's car was the only one with lights on. Eleanor listened, her mind racing ahead to the obstacles she already knew too well. She understood ramps and broken promises. She understood being stuck between floors and options. She also understood the look in the children's eyes, the way fear sharpened hope into something almost painful. She told herself she was not the best person for this, that she could call someone stronger, faster, more able. Yet as she reached for her phone, the battery icon blinked its warning, a reminder that help was not always as close as it seemed. The wind cut through her coat, and the snow thickened, turning the street into a tunnel of white. The apartment building was old, the kind with a stubborn pride and a list of past repairs taped near the mailboxes. The broken ramp lay twisted at the entrance, boards slick with ice, nails exposed like teeth. Inside, the stairwell echoed with the sounds of effort and restraint, a man trying to keep pain from becoming panic. Eleanor could see him through the glass, sitting on the steps, one hand gripping the railing, the other braced against a wall. His leg was wrapped in a temporary brace, the kind meant to heal but not yet strong enough to trust. He had tried to make it down alone, trusting the ramp he had used all week, and now he was stranded between the warmth of his apartment and the cold reality of a broken exit. Eleanor felt the moment press in on her, the way moments do when they ask for something costly. She knew what her body could and could not do. She knew the risks of standing, the way her legs sometimes responded with a tremor that felt like betrayal. She also knew that sometimes the world narrowed to a single choice, and all the careful planning in the world fell away. The triplets hovered near her, their small hands clenched together, their belief in her absolute and terrifying. She rolled closer to the entrance, testing the ground, measuring the distance between her chair and the first step. The cold had numbed her fingers, but it had also sharpened her focus, stripping away doubt until only necessity remained. She locked the wheels, a sound that felt final, and leaned forward, placing her palms on the railing. The metal burned with cold, and for a heartbeat she thought of all the times she had avoided this, all the reasons she had told herself it was not worth the pain. Then she shifted her weight, slowly, deliberately, letting memory guide muscles that had learned to sleep. Her legs protested, a deep ache blooming into something sharper, but she breathed through it, anchoring herself to the present. The world seemed to tilt, the snow and lights blurring, and then she was upright, not tall, not steady, but standing in a way that felt both impossible and inevitable. Each movement became a negotiation. She did not rush. She slid one foot forward, then the other, leaning heavily on the railing, inching her way toward the steps. The man inside watched with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude, his own fear held in check by the sight of someone meeting him where he was. Eleanor reached the first step and lowered herself carefully, distributing weight, ignoring the way her legs shook like branches in a storm. She reached for the broken boards of the ramp, testing their strength, repositioning them, creating a path where there had been none. It was not elegant, it was not easy, but it was enough. The triplets fetched what they could, gloves and scarves and a flashlight with a weak beam, moving with purpose that surprised even them. The building's quiet seemed to hold its breath as Eleanor worked, her movements slow but sure, her determination steadying everyone around her. When the man finally made it down, each step supported, each breath measured. The relief that washed over his face felt like warmth in the cold air. They bundled him into Eleanor's car, cranking the heat, wrapping him in donated coats meant for strangers who suddenly felt like family. By the time they returned to the community center, the night had deepened, and the snow had softened into something almost gentle. Eleanor eased herself back into her chair, her legs burning, her heart full in a way that surprised her. The director of the center took over, making calls, arranging rides, ensuring the man would be safe and the children warm. Eleanor sat quietly, watching the triplets sip hot chocolate, their earlier fear replaced by a glow that had nothing to do with the holiday lights. She felt a fatigue that went beyond her body, a tiredness that came from having crossed a boundary she had drawn around herself years ago. In the days that followed, the story traveled. It moved through the community like a candle flame, lighting up small acts of generosity in its wake. Neighbors repaired the ramp, not just with sturdier materials but with care, adding heating strips to keep ice at bay. The building installed an emergency phone. The community center expanded its accessibility program, guided by Eleanor's quiet expertise. She found herself invited into conversations she had once been excluded from, her experience no longer a limitation, but a lens through which problems could be solved. Eleanor's own life shifted in subtle ways. She did not stand every day, and she did not need to. What changed was her relationship with what she believed possible. She began to accept invitations, to venture out even when the weather threatened complications. She discovered that help often arrived in unexpected forms, and that offering it could be as transformative as receiving it. The triplets visited her sometimes, bringing drawings and updates, their laughter filling her apartment with a sense of continuity she had not known she was missing. Their father healed, slowly and completely, and never forgot the night a woman in a wheelchair had bridged the gap between fear and safety. As Christmas returned the following year, the snow fell again, quieter this time, as if remembering. Eleanor found herself at the community center, watching new volunteers unload coats, the ramp shining and solid under the lights. She felt the familiar ache in her legs and the familiar comfort of her chair, and she felt whole. The miracle of that Christmas Eve had not been that she stood, though that mattered. It had been that she allowed herself to be seen, to be needed, and to trust that her strength, however it appeared, was enough. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that courage often looks like small, deliberate steps taken in the cold, Please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to the channel so these stories can keep finding their way to people who need them. Before we end, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel, or share a moment when someone showed up for you when you least expected it. The night Eleanor stood will always be remembered for the snow and the fear and the broken ramp, but what truly lasted was the way kindness rewrote the limits of a life, one careful step at a time.